What is going on, Pacer Nation? Welcome back to your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace. I'm your host, Alex Golden, and I'm joined today by the one and only Michael J. Facci. Facci, how's it going, brother?
Oh man, life is good, but it's getting a little juicy out here because we were recording and then
A
we
little
almost
spicy,
kind of
maybe?
a little spicy. I think spicy is a little bit of a better description because you and I were recording. We're getting out of the episode. All of a sudden, you pause it and you're like, "Did you get that Shams notification?" And all of a sudden, I grab my phone, I race to it. And I was like, "Oh my god, what do we do now?" Alex, tell them what Shams dropped.
Yeah, so there is an article on The Athletic from Shams Charania reporting with Sam Amick. Raptors Pacers engage in Pascal Siakam trade talks involving Bruce Brown Jr. draft picks, according to sources. Now, going to read this quickly according to what the article says. The Raptors and Pacers are actively engaged in trade talks centered around two-time All-Star forward Pascal Siakam that would send him to Indiana for a package that includes Bruce Brown Jr., other salaries, and 3 first-round draft picks. The Raptors have been engaged in discussions with several teams on a potential Siakam deal, but conversations with the Pacers have gained steam in recent days, those sources say. Sources briefed on the talks between the two teams say that there have been several back and forth proposals made. While the two sides have been described as being far along in the process, according to these sources, they have yet to finalize or agree to a deal. I'm going to continue real quick. The Kings had been among other suitors for Siakam, but decided to pull out of conversations in recent weeks, league sources say. Siakam is also known to be against the potential prospect of re signing in Sacramento, making a Kings deal even more problematic. The Warriors and Mavericks have expressed exploratory interest in Siakam as well, according to league sources. All right, Facci. A lot of stuff there, but basically, it seems like the Pacers are the front runners.
It really does, and I think that we've heard teams like the Warriors are interested, but it's just like I don't know if the Raptors are really interested in taking back long-term salary of an Andrew Wiggins or anything like that. I think the Pacers have the best assets available, but I also feel that the Pacers have been reluctant to include a Mathurin or Jarris Walker, and I agree with that. If Siakam has not given any team any sign that he is willing to sign long term there, then you don't want to part with a Matherin or a Jarris Walker. But when it comes to those draft picks, 3 on paper, it does sound like a lot. It does. But you and I have talked back and forth, back and forth. Where is there room to bring in 2 more rookies next year when you're trying to win, when you can't even find room for the 2 first-round picks that you just drafted? So once you get to a point where draft picks, they're helpful, but they can't help you now. And I think that
Mm.
right now the Pacers are in a rare spot where they've been accumulating assets for years to be able to make a move. And I think those draft picks, I'll part with those any day before I'll part with the Jarris Walker or Benedict Mathurin or honestly, even Andrew Nemhard.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows that Jarris Walker, the eighth overall pick, can't even see the floor right now. What makes you think other draft picks are going to be able to see the floor? The Pacers roster is already loaded with young talent. If they continue to add more young talent to it, like it's not a bad thing to do, but it's like, where are they going to get playing time? Are they going to be lost in the shuffle?
Yes.
Or do you trade away those picks that aren't going to see the floor for an two-time All NBA caliber power forward that the Pacers have desperately needed really since before Thad Young, but even Thad Young filled a role for a little bit, but he's not an All NBA kind of guy. So you're looking for
No.
like an All NBA guy, probably the highest level power forward you could probably get since David West came here in free agency. So it's been a long time, and the Pacers really have been trying to address that for a long time. And me and you have both talked about it. Pascal Siakam is one of the most underappreciated, underrated players that we've heard mentioned to the Pacers. Every single time that I turned on Twitter and Pascal Siakam's name was mentioned in a trade with the Pacers, or there was any kind of rumor, Pacer fans are like kind of torn, but a lot of them are like, no way, I'm not trading anything for him. He's not worth it. He's a rental. He's a blah, blah. Okay. Yes, you're right. He is a rental. I don't think a deal happens unless there is a wink wink agreement between the two sides that Pascal is likely to resign here. Now, look, you have to realize this too. Tyrese Halliburton and the environment that this team has created here is going to make it very hard for a guy to come in here and want to leave. Nobody really wants to leave the Pacers. We see how upset guys are when they get traded or when there's like not brought back. Since Tyrese has been here, it's been tough. There's been guys that have been frustrated with playing time, and we know about that, like a Goga Batadze. I understand like his point of view, like got drafted to the worst possible place to get drafted to, but This is a guy that can instantly raise the Pacers' floor and ceiling if he is brought in here. So, the Bruce Brown package with 3 first-round picks, I have no problem with that. And if there's salary floor that has to be put in there, this roster needs consolidated anyways. There's
It
too many
does.
guys that are not getting playing time because there's too many guys ahead of them. And so I think that a consolidation trade makes a ton of sense. You give up future picks that you're not going to really need as much, in my opinion, when you're trying to win right now. And then if you can keep Jarris out of this trade, that only allows him to be under the wing of Pascal Siakam to learn from him. And then maybe when Pascal, his next contract's up, Jarris is 24, 25, entering his prime. I think it makes a ton of sense.
I think it does. I think that right now, I mean, name me a time that Kevin Pritchard has come out on the wrong end of the deal. I just feel that like when Pritchard's making deals, the Pacers come out on top. And I think that I trust the Pacers front office that they have, like you said, a little wink, 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 whatever it is, they feel confident enough if they're going to make a deal that it's, hey, you know what? While he might not say, I guarantee you that I will sign long term, it's we're going to be a real good team. He's going to have a lot of fun and we're going to win some games. And I think that we're going to be able to show where else can you play with an elite point guard like this. There are very few teams that are going to be available that are going to have a point guard that is even 4/5 of what Tyrese is. So I am excited about that, but I also think that Pacers can make some noise. You could bring in, Siakam. You can consolidate this roster. I think they have an opportunity to maybe even go out and add someone through the buyout market. I mean, who knows? Who knows what other deal could follow this? But there are guys right now that are struggling to get playing time. And if you bring in Siakam, I mean, at power forward alone, you got a few other guys that are going to struggle to see the floor. So it does make sense to say, who could be that guy? Could it be an Obi Toppin? Could it be, a Jalen Smith? It very well could happen. But I have a question on those draft picks. I
Mm-hmm.
think we're all probably under the assumption you would imagine 2 of the 3 first-round picks are this year's picks. The Pacers pick, and then either OKC or the Clippers pick, I would imagine. Then when do you think that next pick is? I mean, do you think we're going 2026 at this point? Or, I
Well,
mean,
it
what do
had to
you
be
think?
2026 because you can't
Well,
trade
you,
2025
you, you
because of the
can't
Stepien
trade.
rule.
No, exactly. You can't trade 2025, but you don't think the Pacers would punt too far down the line. I think
Yeah.
2026 is probably what they envision as this team should really be hitting their stride and
Yeah.
winning games where you're not worried. But I think it would be a bad move to include like a 2028, 2020. That's too far down the line for me, and you just never know what those picks could be.
Yeah, and you have to realize what kind of protections are on these picks too. And it can be kind of tricky because sometimes I feel like protected picks are almost annoying because you can only trade them if they end up becoming your picks again or if they whatever. You know what I mean? There's a lot of protections on picks. It
Yeah.
just kind of gets complicated when you're trying to trade them in the future. But I will say this: I do think that it probably means both 2024 picks in this year's draft, but at the same point, I also think does Toronto really want 2 picks in this year's draft class with how
Well,
bad this draft class is?
they might not have their own first round pick. Remember,
That's
that
right.
pick, if it's not in the top 6, it's going to San Antonio.
That's right.
So there's a scenario that maybe Toronto has 3 first round picks, or maybe they have none.
Yeah.
So I think that this is an opportunity for them
Good
to at
point.
least get 2 first round picks, and we'll see what happens with theirs. If they trade Siakam, yeah, you know what? Maybe they kind of tank out. They get 3 first round picks. They have young talent. Bruce Brown is an asset that you could flip. Anything could happen from there. So I think Toronto's in a really good spot if they make this trade, but I think they know Siakam ain't coming back. And these offers, they're drying up. And you ain't getting 3 first round picks from anyone else unless those are very bad draft picks, in my opinion. Like a team that, maybe, is a true contender and they're really not looking to give up much. I think you have a balance here of getting Indiana's pick. Could it be top 20? It could, maybe.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get that other pick, OKC or the Clippers. That other pick, the 2026, maybe. Even if it's top 10 protected, I feel good with that, right? I
Yeah.
think top 10, there's got to be a protection on that pick. There's no way the Pacers are giving up an unprotected 2026 pick as their 3rd 1st round pick for a guy who's not under contract. That to me feels like a lot.
Yeah. They probably give up their pick unprotected this year. And I
Yes.
could even see a pick swap being in there instead.
That could
something.
very well
I
be.
don't know. I'm just throwing out there. We have no idea. We're just spitballing ideas. So this is not reporting. This is just speculation or just guessing at this point. I don't want to make sure we make that clear. But yeah, I'm to the point right now where I'm kind of over the talking point of, oh, well, he could leave in free agency. Oh, he could leave in free agency. That might be egg on my face by July, and I'll be willing to wear that egg on my face if that's what happens. I just feel like I have all the confidence in the world in Rick Carlisle and Tyrese Halliburton to make the fit work if they do trade for him. I think that Pascal Siakam, who else is out there that really is going to have money? Detroit, are you really want to go to Detroit? That doesn't make any sense to me. And then Philadelphia has been another team that's been heavily connected with potentially having the space to bring in Siakam, but a lot of people have brought up the fit with Joel Embiid and Siakam not being a good fit. So I just feel like at this point, it is a terrific fit on the court with Miles Turner, Tyrese Halliburton, and Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam, you don't give up Jarris Walker. You have a really good player at the four that's going to help elevate this team, like I've already said. I don't understand why anybody would be upset about this. If you just don't like Pascal Siakam and you think that he's overrated and he's not good, okay, that's your opinion. You can believe that. That's fine. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. That's an opinion. But I think at this point, like, what do they have to lose if they're giving up Bruce Brown and salary filler? The only thing I could think of is if it's like, okay, we want Bruce Brown, we want Jalen Smith, and we want Andrew Nimhard, plus all these picks. Is that where you kind of draw the line? Because Andrew Nimhard is very valuable, but somebody they've also coveted since the draft.
So you're talking about Bruce Brown, Jalen Smith, Andrew Nembhard, 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
I feel like if Andrew Nembhard's in there, you're taking out a first-round pick.
Yeah.
To me, it just feels like that's starting to tip the scale of like, whoa, you're talking about 3 players that contribute to this team and 3 first-round picks. So to me, all of a sudden, I feel like you're like, look, you want Nembhard, we're taking out that 2026 first. I think that's where you'd have to go.
Yeah. And I'm fine with that. I just think that they have to figure it out.
They do.
If they want Ben Shepherd, I think the picks have to stay in there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, look, Ben Shepherd could be a very good player in this league. He could, but I think that the Pacers could afford to be able to say, okay, you know what, get yourself a deal if that's how it goes down. But the Pacers actually are in a good spot where you could get crafty with this. You know that there has to be salary filler next to Bruce Brown, but it could be a couple different options.
Hmm.
What about a TJ McConnell? I mean, there's for McConnell over there, that gets you to where you got to be salary wise. He's making $8.7 million. So you're already, over about $31 million, which would facilitate the deal. I mean, do you think that's a scenario, or do you think it's like, hey, if we're going for a player, another salary filler, we want it to at least be a young player, such as maybe an Obi Toppin, a guy
Yeah.
that could still be young and contribute for a few more years. How do you think the Raptors would want it?
I think they would prefer Obi over TJ just for the simple fact of what you brought up and just being someone they can maybe bank on for the future. They could have all three softies of the New York Knicks, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, and Obi Toppin. I'm sure you saw that report where the Knicks, somebody leaked out that once they got rid of the softies in terms of
I
those
know.
three
I didn't like
players.
that. I didn't
Nah,
like
I thought it
that.
was trash.
I
It was
know.
me making a bad attempt at a joke, being
Yeah, yeah.
sarcastic, kind
No,
of
no.
throwing that person under the bus.
Yeah, no. I agree with you on that. I just feel like softies. Okay, yeah. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, for
But
me, there's a lot of different ways we could look at this, but I am kind of curious because what if there was a three-team deal involved and
mm,
the Pacers are like, okay, let's see if there's a way we can make this a little bit more appealing to both sides here. So I'm gonna throw this one out at you, Facci. It's a Pacers Raptors Warriors deal. Okay. Pacers get Pascal Siakam. The Golden State Warriors get Bruce Brown, Jordan Moore. The Raptors get Andrew Wiggins, Obi Toppin, Corey Joseph, a 2024 first round pick from the Pacers, and a 2026 first round pick protected from the Golden State Warriors.
so the Pacers just get Siakam?
Just get Siakam, and they're giving up Obi Toppin, Bruce Brown, Jordan Moore, and a pick.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I would do that. So you're talking about 1 first-round pick, Bruce Brown, Obi Toppin, Jordan Nwora. Yeah, I would much rather that than 3 first-round picks.
Yeah, I mean that's why I was like, okay, and I made this up last night before all this news came out. I was thinking, there's probably some belief in Andrew Wiggins still as a player, right? But I think that if the Warriors are trying to get off of him, if they could get off of Andrew Wiggins and Corey Joseph or Bruce Brown and Jordan Nwora, I feel like they would like that. Just having Bruce Brown there, I think he's been much more consistent than Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins has really struggled this season, and I feel like he's viewed as a negative asset moving
Now he is.
forward.
I think so.
And you might have to attach that pick to him, which is why I threw a top 8 protected pick to the Raptors. So they're getting 2 first-round picks. They're getting the option with Obi Top, and they're getting a Canadian in himself, Andrew Wiggins, who's got $24.3 million left on his contract this year, but he's signed for 3 more years after that. And then, of course, they just take on another Canadian, Corey Joseph, in the deal as well. Bring Corey back home. So to me, it was just like a simple deal that didn't seem too over the top complicated, but it's like if they would rather have Wiggins and take one of the picks out, could that be more enticing than Bruce Brown? Because I feel like at this point, Bruce Brown, like, what's the value of having Bruce Brown for like 3 weeks?
Yeah.
I feel like
No,
Wiggins would be more of an asset to the Raptors.
I do agree. I think that trying to think. I would love if there's a scenario, and I know it doesn't work out that way, but it's like if the Pacers were to do Bruce Brown, Jalen Smith, Jordan Nwora, and those picks, like I'm fine with that. I am because I think that Isaiah Jackson, when this roster's fully healthy, it's going to be tough to get playing time for Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith. And
Mm,
I think that Jalen Smith, like we talked about, previously, he could walk. He could opt out of that player option, and maybe you lose him for nothing. And I think that at this point, Jordan Nwora, I think is a goner. If you could include him in this deal, maybe you know what, maybe he contributes to the Raptors this year. They like what they see and they bring him back. I don't know, but either way, the Raptors would not be taking on any long term money other than just 1 year of Bruce Brown that they could always flip. But I think that it would be great if the Pacers could avoid a scenario where they are including, I don't know. Maybe it's just me trying to be like, is there any way we can hold on to Obi Toppin? But here's the thing. It's just like you'd still have to then pay him. Maybe if the Pacers don't, I don't know. Like, are the Pacers going to pay Obi long term? That's a whole episode for another day. But if you're bringing in Pascal Siakam, in my opinion, a big's got to go. Specifically, a four, I think has to go. Where are
mm.
you going to find playing time for Pascal, Obi, Jalen? You could say whatever you want to say. Throw Isaiah just into the mix of a big, and obviously Jarris Walker's already not playing.
Yeah.
Someone's got to be on the outs, and I think that you know it could be easier if perhaps it is maybe Obi and Jordan Nwora are involved, and it's Obi, Jordan Nwora, and Bruce Brown. But I think it's got to be Obi or Jalen Smith, in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense to get rid of one of the bigs. I mean, you could do like I've seen people throw out Bruce Brown, Buddy Hield together. You could get Jaden McDaniel or Jalen McDaniels, excuse me, and Pascal Siakam back in that deal, which could be interesting. Um, I don't know what the Raptors are wanting. I think the Raptors are going to want something of some kind of value with a young player
I agree.
that's not necessarily one of our first round picks. I mean, if they're asking for Obi Toppin, to me, that's not a stopper at all.
It's not a deal breaker.
I'm more than okay with doing that. I think it just opens up more minutes for Jarris as well. But I also think that they would probably just play Jalen Smith if they keep him at the four and the backup four, or play Aaron Nesmith more at the four. I think they're going to not fully trust Jarris Walker yet, but I think it would help for the future of this back or that front court and that backup spot as the four for Jarris if Obi Toppin's not in the way, taking away minutes, because it does just give you another option. And I think someone that Carlisle trusts a little bit more.
No, I'm with you on that, and I feel that while Obi's not playing, like starter level minutes, he is still playing over 20 minutes per game, and like you said, that does create a path for Jarris Walker to play more, and I think that that's what a lot of fans would like to see, but I just I don't want him to get to a point where you don't move Obi, and all of a sudden now his value is really down, and then you really don't know what to pay him. It's like if anything, kind of do right by him, move him, whatever it may be. But my gut is saying Jalen Smith is opting out of that deal no matter what and cashing in. If you have an opportunity to get ahead of it, he is a good rebounder. He is a better rebounder than Obi Toppin, but I just feel that one of those guys has to be moved. It is a tough decision, And in my opinion, you could bring back Obi Toppin as a restricted free agent, but I feel like Jalen Smith, I don't see the Pacers re-signing him to a deal that might pay him, say, instead of $5 million a year, $9 to $10 million a year long term. I think that could be a little bit much.
Yeah, so right now I'm looking at the trade machine, and according to Fanspo on the trade machine, a deal of Bruce Brown, Jalen Smith, and Jordan Nwora for Pascal Siakam is not enough salary going out. So you would have to include probably James Johnson in this deal, which I don't think is going to break the bank. We've seen them do that before. Raptors would cut
Yes.
James Johnson, even though he is a vet. And then the Pacers could just repick him probably back up after that, like they did last year with Milwaukee.
Yeah, they very well could, and like we've talked about, that it might not be what Toronto wants, but Bruce Brown and TJ McConnell works out flawlessly.
Yeah, it
Plus
does.
those three first round picks, and I do think there actually could be some value with McConnell there for the rest of this year. But they already have Dennis Schroeder, they already have Emmanuel Quickly. Bringing in TJ McConnell, it's not really going to be the best path for playing time, but could be a good vet. But I could understand if they're like, no, thank you. Masai Ujiri, tough guy to deal with. So I think at this point, they could they want an Isaiah Jackson in there that you mentioned, to try and make the salary work. At that point, I'm not going to let Isaiah Jackson be the deal breaker for us. That would
No.
be a complete 180 on where we started the year to say Isaiah Jackson's the holdup in a Pascal Siakam deal. But to what you said before of what was it? Bruce Brown, was it Obi and Nwora? Is that what you said? Wouldn't work?
Bruce Brown, Jalen Smith, and Jordan
James
Moore.
Smith. Yeah. And then if you included
James
Isaiah
Johnson
Jackson,
just for
yeah,
the
or
salary. I
either
mean,
one.
yeah, I mean, I think I'd rather throw in Ben Shepherd at this point
I
than
wouldn't.
Isaiah Jackson.
I think that they would value Ben Shepherd as a young player under contract for a few years. As shooters, they're always going to hold value, but I think the Pacers could be able to. I don't want to downplay Ben Shepherd, but it would be a move that they could very well recover from.
It,
They
it's a
they they
it's the
could
type
still
of
go to
pick they're
sleep.
trading.
Exactly, but that's what. Hey, you know what? Look, it's almost like you got four first rounders. It's look at it that way.
Yeah.
He was just a first round
Or
pick. That's what I'm saying. Whatever you got to be, I'm sure people will label it as Patriots giving four first round picks. It's like, I guess. But one of them being Ben Shepherd, that honestly, he could maybe have a bigger opportunity to develop in Toronto than Indiana. But I also feel that you could part with a Ben Shepherd if that's really what's going to get this deal done. But I really would look forward to see what the protection is on that third first round pick. But I am 110% on board that I don't even want those two first round picks for this year, because what I want is a higher ceiling on this team being able to win. And you know what? If that's just for we got to do everything we can to prove it to Siakam and have a run in the playoffs, win a first round series, that could very well be enough to say, you know what? The money's going to be good. We got a team right now that can compete. That's enough for me. But I understand right now if he doesn't want to, commit, but we ain't giving up a Matherin. We ain't going to give up a Jarris Walker. I can live if we give up those picks, and maybe it doesn't work out. That's the front office really taking a swing for the fences.
Yeah, I mean, they had to take a swing. And I think that they've kind of been playing it cool for a little bit without taking a big swing. I mean, you can say trading Domantas Sabonis for Tyrese Halliburton was not taking or was taking a big swing. To me, the writing was on the wall with that team. They were going to make changes. There was no doubt about it. Their backs were against the wall, and the Kings were dumb enough to let Tyrese Halliburton go. I don't care how good De'Aaron Fox has been. I don't care how good the Kings have been since they made that trade. You do not let a prize possession like Tyrese Halliburton go in his sophomore season. That's why you don't see the Pacers actively looking to trade a guy like Ben Matherin. So it's just mind-boggling to me. I mean, I cannot get over it, but uh Sacramento, yeah, it worked out for you a little bit, but that might be more short-sighted than long than long term. So I just know that the Pacers have put themselves in a really good spot, Facci, to make themselves be able to make a trade like this. And even if for some reason Pascal walks in free agency, you still have all that cap space to go out there and say, hey, we have a starting fourth position open for you to play with Tyrese. Or if they have his bird rights and he doesn't want to be here, they can sign and trade him. or with his bird rights, they can give him a better deal. And I think that that's all that matters with Pascal Siakam. I think he wants to win. His best chance to win is not in Toronto with the roster they currently have. I think his best
No,
chance to win is with Indiana, based on all the possible destinations he could go to that would be willing to give the Raptors something that they want back in return. And that's the big thing right there. Nobody else really can give Toronto what they want back in return except for the Pacers. Maybe the Warriors. Maybe the Warriors can.
maybe,
But are they
maybe.
willing to part with a guy like Jonathan Kuminga? The same reason the Pacers won't part with a guy like Jarris Walker or Ben Matherin? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Money talks, money yells, money screams. It's pretty loud. And at the end of the day, I think that that's going to speak a lot to Pascal Siakam. But yeah, you mentioned it. Pacers are in a spot where they really can't lose. You say the worst case scenario is that the Pacers have some success. They win a first round series, or you know what, they really competitive first round series. You get this team back to the playoffs. Yeah, you missed out on the draft picks, but you know what? It's going to be all right. You're going to have money to spend, and you got a really talented young core that's still there. And I think for that, you're going to be able to recover. But I think it would prove a lot to the fan base for the front office to really go out and roll the dice and say, when you got a player as special as Tyrese Halliburton, you don't sit around and twiddle your thumbs. You go out and you make moves. And I think that there's going to be other players around the league that will see this and be like, I want to play in Indiana. And that is something I don't know if those players have been saying for quite some time, but there's something that we're brewing right over here. And I wouldn't be surprised if we hook Pascal Siakam because Tyrese Halliburton, that man works wonders. He is quite the recruiter. And if he's already got you, that whole team's going to be in his ear all the time, trying to plant those seeds to stay long term. And I think it's going to work.
Yeah, and it sends a message to the front. It sends a message to the league, and it sends a message to Tyrese Halliburton. We are ready to start winning with you.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about it. I know there's a lot of controversy on the Pascal Siakam stuff. Is he the best player available? Probably so. I think with with Kawhi
Right
Leonard
now,
going back,
yes.
yes, with Kawhi Leonard going back to the Clippers and re-upping there was a report that came out today from Mark Stein saying the Pacers were kind of monitoring Paul George as a possible guy, but it seems more likely that he's going to go back to the Clippers. That to me makes more sense why the Pacers would be even more aggressive to go out and get Pascal Siakam and why they might have been a little bit hesitant to make this move now without having the cap space to go out and get a Paul George if they were really considering that being an option. I think that the relationship between Ty and Paul is real. I think they're both with CAA, the agency, so that could be something to keep an eye on too. I mean, you never know, anything can happen, but like Clippers flame out in round one, is Paul going to want to stay there? You never know. He might want to come home. I mean, Paul to me has done a lot of work to try to fix the relationship with Indiana, and I don't feel like it was on accident that he did that. I think that he thought in his
Yeah,
mind there is a potential possibility that with the way they look now with Ty and Miles, that he would fit in pretty darn good with that. And it's like, okay, and I would shake Paul's hand. Hey, you got us, Tyrese, by leaving, so thank you.
hey, no, that's true. I mean, it truly is a direct correlation. But yeah, the Pacers and Paul George are that mending that relationship. It's come a long way, and I love the fact that the Pacers were monitoring that. And I still truly would love for Paul George to retire as a Pacer, even if it is truly that last year. But never say never. Anything could happen. I think the Pacers have done their due diligence around the league, and the idea of free agency tends to always be better than the actual result.
Yeah.
And I think the Pacers might know, hey, this is us getting ahead of free agency, being able to make a trade for a guy like Pascal Siakam, who's going to be one of the biggest free agents out there. And I think that this is their opportunity to be able to, sell them on a couple months of, hey, this is what it's like. Show them, get familiar with the team, and then once free agency comes, hey, that's your opportunity to lock them down. So it feels more real right now when we're recording this than it has been any of these weeks where you've seen a bunch of Siakam rumors and then physically nothing attached to it. We're now hearing, once it came from Shams and we're hearing names, now it feels there's true legs to this. And maybe a deal gets done this week. Maybe it does, but the Raptors are running out of time. And that is everything we said before the season. What's going to happen when it gets close to the trade deadline? Who's going to call their bluff? They're running out of time. They got about 3 weeks left, but maybe a deal gets done this week.
Let's just hope Shams is not being a mouthpiece for the Raptors and putting out this information and killing a deal for the Pacers. If you don't want Pascal, then that's what you're holding on to right now. But that is the only thing I worry about because we did see Shams do the same thing with the Kings, and then like 2 hours later, say the Kings are out of the deal.
That was the craziest thing I've seen. It was just, it was almost like he got bad news. It was like, I didn't mean that. He quickly ran back. So I was like, all right, Kings are in and the Kings are out.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll continue to monitor this. I know we've been talking about it a lot, so I do apologize if you guys are tired of hearing us talk about it, but felt like it was appropriate to cover it tonight on today's episode. We did an emergency podcast basically just for you guys. We had one pre-recorded with other people too, and like we had some episodes in the bank that we were pushing back just because we felt like this was too timely to pass up on. So, Facci, with that being said, let the people know where they can find us at on social media.
Absolutely. So you can find us on Twitter at PacersPod STP. You can find us, you can find Alex on Twitter at AlexGoldenNBA. I can be found on Twitter at _FACCI. You can find us on Instagram at PacersPod STP. You can find us on Facebook at Set the Pace. You can find us on TikTok at Set the Pace. And Alex, tell them where they can check us out on YouTube.
So ladies and gentlemen, go to youtube.com/Setting the Pace, a Pacers podcast. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be a part of the YouTube family and leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcast at on the audio platform. But Facci, if you're excited to see what happens with the Pacers and their pursuit of Pascal Siakam, then hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers!
Come home, Pascal.